think the difficulty in and professionals really understanding the nature of the problem of people's eating behavior, which has been termed over these years a disorder, is that they really don't understand the genesis, where it comes from, which we have learned now because of brain imaging technology and all these neuroscientists being able to explain to us what the issue is and why people can't start, why they can't stop once they start. That's addiction. And where does it come from? So the field has always looked at the emotions, the environment. And what these neuroscientists are telling us is no, it's the brain. And the brain is the beginning of the issue of addiction. Why people can't apply a rational approach to their eating. Why can't they just stop when they want to stop? What's wrong? So they've always believed that it had to do with emotions and feelings about self. And one of the things that we know in terms of, now that we know how the brain is involved, that's secondary. The primary cause and issue is the brain. And there's a dysfunction, as they've explained it, there's a dysfunction in the feedback circuitry of the brain once they enjoy the pleasure delivered by a substance that allowed the brain to produce or provoke the brain to produce dopamine. Everybody knows about dopamine. So we want dopamine. It's euphoric. It's so pleasurable. The problem is once it's been provoked, it starts to subside, and then what happens? The feedback circuitry kicks in and will either allow the person to experience satiety, which is the word they use in the literature. My word is enoughness. Or the feedback circuitry kicks in and says, it wasn't enough. They experience craving for more. That is addiction. And that is not really understood, I believe, with a lot of therapists who work first to deal with people's childhoods and trauma. They're elements, but they're not the foundation. Addiction is a biopsychosocial illness. The biology comes first, and that is what has to be dealt with first. Who doesn't want to have sort of like a normal relationship with food? To eat when they're hungry and to stop when they're full. I think very few people really have that natural experience. That's all coming from when the brain says enough. It's okay, then I stop. That's not my brain. The reward circuitry, the feedback circuitry in my brain doesn't have an off switch when the switch was thrown in the on position. What I have learned and what the neuroscientists now tell us is that if we don't provoke the brain with substances that don't belong in the body, we don't have a problem. It's sort of a natural process that takes place, and I can feel my fullness. I can feel my emptiness, which is natural hunger. Versus what happens with blood sugar. If I'm putting in my body what doesn't belong there to spike and results in spiked blood sugar, then at some point, maybe an hour later, I'm going to have a crash, and I'm going to be looking for something to feel better again. That's not a natural, healthy way to deal with one's body. And actually the brain tells us that because it kicks in or kicks out at various times not in a natural way. People don't eat in a way that sustains their body properly. So basically, most of us don't know what to eat, when to eat, or how much to eat. Well, that's why we really talk about learning about the substances that trigger this whole mechanism in the brain that sends us on missions where we don't stop, and we can't get enough. That's driven by the brain. That is not driven by my childhood. Childhood is in there, but not predominantly and primarily.